Welcome to the Phoenix Podcast, where we discuss mental health in the Black community. Tune in for weekly episodes with your hosts, John and Chris.
There's something wrong with the country.
Yeah.
Because I know about this guy who killed a family and 3 workers. Then there's some other kid, I think, in Kisii who killed like 3 people.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what's going on? Why
Yeah.
are people so enraged? Why are people so incensed? I mean, beating your folks is one thing.
Yeah.
Killing them is another. Because, you actually have an intent. You actually go and you purchase a weapon knowing full well that this evening I'm going to go home. Because remember, initially when the reports first came out, they said that there was like, I think, 2 borders and 1 car.
Right.
And it looked like the parents knew who the people were because they let them in. And the people that survived were the 2 girls because they'd gone to school.
That's
earlier
right.
in the day. And the gentleman because he had gone to, I think it's Mount Kenya University, yeah?
Right.
We won't mention the university. We'll just went to university.
Gotcha.
That's why they survived. And then it turns out later that this dude came back to kill his folks.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, he must have thought about it. He must have planned, okay, this is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to be. And he set out the plan and he executed the plan and he executed these people. Even his kid brother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And he slit their throats. That's a very personal crime.
It is. It's a horrible way to go.
It is.
Especially the little brother who was, I believe, 12 years old.
Begging for his life. He was
Begging
kneeling.
for his life.
He was kneeling. Yeah.
Well, all right, folks. So as we dive into this episode, we are addressing certain key issues happening on the ground here in Nairobi, Kenya. It's been widely reported that a young man, 22 years old,
Yeah.
a university student
Yes.
at the
Yes. At
Mount Kenya
a
University,
certain
a certain university,
Exactly.
at a certain university in the country. He had certain there was certain issues
and
within the family.
His uncle had his uncle had said that he had actually accused his mother of being involved in some satanic practices, and he accused his parents of treating him like in a demonic way, whatever that is.
Right.
The sad thing is that his late dad, used to work so hard because he was in the U.S. right, working from the U.S.
Right.
And he had actually come down and I think over Christmas or something he had hosted like 40 people in Naivasha or on some kind of family retreat or something.
Right.
So this was a guy who was generous to a fault.
Right.
I mean, even here in Kenya, hosting 40 guys.
Yeah, it's no small coin.
No.
So in your opinion, Chris, do you believe that this kid reached a point where there was a psychotic break? Either there was some deep-seated mental issues that was never diagnosed, and in turn it kind of boiled up to the surface, and now he acted upon it because there must have been a trigger, something that triggered that rage that allowed him to even, I think the report allegedly states that he broke his mother's arm. And his father jumped off the balcony trying to get away, and he said, "I caught up to him."
Exactly.
And then he proceeded to dispatch of his
In
father.
In fact, what is actually very, 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 very shocking is that this was not the first time that he had displayed this kind of tendency, because his uncle is actually in record as having said that this guy had accused his mom of being satanic, he said that the rest of the family looked down on him because his girlfriend seemed to be from the other side of the tracks, and sometimes that's a problem if you're into a class and that kind of thing. But also one thing also that I'd like to state over here is that the media has been kind of very irresponsible in their reporting, because they specifically mentioned a certain program.
Right.
And if I were the producer or the executive producer of that program, which is an international program, I would sue the media for all they're worth, because you know the way they usually say allegedly,
Right.
and they usually say that a certain program or a certain politician.
That's right.
Why did they call that program out? Because what has happened now, inadvertently, is if you go to the cyber cafes and you try and get that particular program, it's flying off like hotcake.
Wow.
Because by mentioning it in a negative light, anytime you mention something negatively or you ban something, their reaction is, I
Absolutely.
gotta see this.
Right,
I gotta
right.
hear this. I got
Yeah,
it.
it's sort of like the whole thing about forbidden fruit, right? Now all of
Exactly.
a
Yeah.
sudden it's forbidden, then you want to see what the hell is so um, what the hell is so taboo about this particular
Yeah.
thing. I got to go see for myself.
Because if you're actually fueling the fire, because like now, what you're doing is by actually mentioning that program, which is on a pay-per-view platform,
Right.
you actually give certain government agencies enough fuel to the fire to actually say that we've been telling you for the longest time, our youth are being influenced by ABCD. So now this is a classic example of that.
Gotcha.
Exactly, and it's painting in a bad light.
Right.
But arguably, they do have a case because if indeed the actions that this young man carried out were due to whatever he watched, whatever he believed he was watching,
Right.
then yes, you can argue that there is some kind of responsibility. However, you do have to draw the line between fantasy and reality.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, this particular program in question, right? If the kid wasn't influenced by such a program, he's not the only kid
No.
who's watched that program. So
Exactly.
why is he the one, like specifically, that uses that as a trigger? So the common denominator is that kid.
Yes.
It's that young man. Actually,
Yes.
he's not a kid really.
No,
He's a
20
22-year-old
22, yeah,
young
22, yeah.
young man. That young man. Let's call him a young man. What do you think that he might have suffered like from some sort of mental or psychotic breakdown?
It's quite possible that that actually is what happened, and he was under a lot of stress, a lot of duress. Like I said, his dad was in the U.S. Working, I think, like a nurse or something.
Right.
His mother was a nurse here in Kenya. Definitely from the reports, you can see that they were living quite well. Maybe he felt that he was not up to scratch, or his parents felt that he was not up to scratch. And instead of realizing it's something that they have to deal with kid gloves, they were like, you're useless, you can't do ABCD, that kind of thing. And that actually, those things actually affect you.
Absolutely.
They actually affect you. They actually, if you keep on thinking that you're inferior,
You're not
or
worthy.
exactly, you're not worthy, you'll actually, because words have power. Words have power. If you don't believe in yourself, you'll never get anywhere.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I think we touched up on this on the last episode, where you get yourself in a situation where you start believing what's being projected at you.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
And now we don't know the dynamics within the family, how he was treated, how he was being spoken to by the mother and the father, and even other siblings. So he might have internalized that, and in turn, now being coming from high school and into university here in the country. Again, there's a question of bullying. So he might have been bullying. He might have been ostracized, by his peers. He might have had, certain, he might have been rejected by a certain, person of the female persuasion.
Yeah.
All these things is the especially at a young age, you tend to words tend to be a little bit more stabby, for the lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So he might have internalized certain words that were hurtful to him, that were directed at him constantly over the years,
Yeah.
and then now he finally reached a breaking point, and he acted up on it. So let us segue into a larger context of to what culminated to this young man uh, committing such a heinous crime in the country, right? To my understanding, I think I've heard that suicide is criminalized, has been criminalized.
It is criminal, yeah.
So,
You can actually get arrested for attempted suicide.
which is absurd, don't you think?
Yeah. Because what? They would prefer if it's just successful?
If you're successful, then well, yeah, goodbye. See you in the afterlife. But if you survive, you get arrested and you get a criminal record, right?
Yes, of course, yeah. And very rarely do you get like a psych evaluation. One thing we also need to ask ourselves very seriously is the young man was 22. Are we growing a generation of people who are outwardly mature in terms of physical development, and the fact that because you're 18, you're now an adult, but your mental capacity is somewhat wanting.
It's highly possible because it's sort of like it's akin to a fruit that by looking at the color you think, oh, it's
It's
fully
ripe.
right,
It's
it's ripe. But then when you cut into it, when you peel back the layers, you cut into it, and you
Yeah.
realize, well,
Yeah.
I should have waited a couple more years. Well, not fruits, but I should have waited a couple more days to cut into the mango or the apple
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I think for kids it's essentially the same sort of like, well, it's sort of like they reach maturity outwardly, but on the inside,
Exactly.
they struggle. I mean, I think it's always been the case though, but especially nowadays because of exposure, social media. There's peer pressure is more
Of
global
course it
now.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like in the U.S. You can you was it you can die for your country at
at
the age of
18.
18,
That's right.
but you can't drink until what is it 21 or something?
21.
So
That's right. Does not make any sense at all.
yeah,
But
so
hey, figure
go
figure it
figure.
out. Yeah.
So I can die at 18, but I can't drink until I'm 21.
Right.
Okay, all right,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So,
Sure.
so there's something fundamentally wrong with, and that's why maybe societies that have like initiation rites and that thing, because literally you have to become a man.
Yep.
Okay. Now, I'm not a proponent or a believer in FGM, but there must be some kind of thing that young girls go through to indicate that they're becoming women.
Rite of passage.
Yeah, a rite of passage. Traditionally,
Yeah.
I think something has been lost here. I think the society that we're bringing up right now, whereby, like I told you, wrong is right
Yep.
and right is wrong, it's beginning to affect indirectly.
Yeah.
Because now, when you read about this kid, what he did, you read about the guy in KC that killed 3 kids, and I mean, you're like, what is the problem? Or is it because of the fact that it's being brought to light by the media now? Because has there been, unlike places like the U.S., has there been a culture of psychopaths killing people? But it's because we don't know whether they're prostitutes, beggars, vagrants. It's because we don't know who these people are
Yeah.
that we don't know that this has been happening for years, which is very dangerous.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
Because then once it's not brought into the light, you assume that, well, everything's hunky dory.
Yeah.
Then once now the veil has been lifted, then you realize, oh, okay, this I guess it's akin to police brutality in the states, where now we've been talking about it for years,
Yeah.
but now because of cell phone cameras,
Yeah.
now people, oh, really? So we're like, yeah,
Because they had the blue wall of silence.
that's right.
Among them.
So
You
we've
see,
been telling you all these years, this is what's
Nobody
happening.
says anything.
Right. So, about the situation here in terms of mental wellness, we do realize also that we're in the middle of a pandemic. Last year was horrendous, and what that brought to the surface is the fact that now people had to live in close quarters.
Exactly. Love the one you with.
Exactly,
Like Icarus says.
extended periods of time, right? So now a lot of relationships have you either sink or swim. You either thrive or you dwindle into oblivion.
Yeah.
So that affected a lot of people, and I think that shone a light that underlined the some deep rooted psychological issues or mental issues in a lot of us, especially in the melanated community. We got to a point where now either some of us lost our jobs or a means of generating income, and you can't really just pick up and go on a trip
No. You can't.
because of the travel restrictions and
Yeah.
all that.
Yeah. You couldn't
So
even leave your county.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So you think that we will see, or we're in the process of seeing more psychotic breaks or mental breakdowns in the community because of the pandemic. Now it's amplifying the effect of the mental illness.
I think what COVID has done actually is it has made us be more introspective. A society whereby you have doctors are on strike because they don't have access to PPEs. They're not being paid well. Teachers also not being paid well. And you have the people who are basically the caregivers and the mentors of society are fighting for their rights. Well, you find that the politicians are getting paid, are living well, have got fantastic health cover. In fact, a lot of people were very happy about one thing that COVID did. COVID was a great leveler. It made everyone equal.
Yep.
The fact that you could not get out, no matter how much money you had, you couldn't leave the country to go for treatment.
Right.
Because of the borders being closed.
That's right.
So we were all in this together. The upshot to this was that health services began getting improved.
Yeah.
Because even the big boys were like,
The
okay,
elite,
the
so to
elite.
speak. Right.
The elite were like, okay, so I can't get out. I have no option.
I can't fly to Dubai.
Exactly,
Or,
I
yeah.
can't. I can't. So what's the option?
Yeah.
So the option is like things with the National Health Insurance Fund and all that.
Right.
People realize that these things are important, and I've always said, if you have a healthy nation, you have a wealthy nation.
Correct.
And you can also divert those funds that you normally, allocate to health to other things. So when this happened, and people realized that we're all mortal, we're all human being, it was a wake up call. It was a huge, huge wake up call.
Yeah.
And where we are right now is luckily we may be undergoing the second wave, but not to the extent that Europe is undergoing, or the U.S.
Right.
or even parts of Asia. In fact, I just saw this morning that 77% of people in Japan believe that it might not be a very good idea to hold the Olympics even this year, because they're having that surge
That's right.
as well. There's something called groupthink. For the first time, the whole world was thinking as one. We have to stay alive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, yeah, you're right. In essence, we became a hive. Yeah?
Exactly, right, yeah.
And groupthink is in effect, definitely.
Definitely, yeah.
And hopefully, I think what will do to us in terms of, the melanated community is now it's going to bring us together.
Yes.
It's going to make us realize, we need each other.
Yes.
And we need to come together and do certain things that we have failed to do for centuries.
Exactly.
Which is come together. For instance, a little segue into the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement.
Yeah.
So right. So I think it's going to be a great boost for the melanated community at large on the continent and the diaspora.
If it becomes reality.
Oh, I think I'm the eternal optimist. I know it will become a reality, and I'm willing it into power, and I know it will become a reality, and then that's the dream, Kwame Nkrumah, all right, all the Pan-Africanists, Pan-Africanists, they saw this coming.
They did.
Yeah,
They did.
all right.
They did. But you had Kwame Nkrumah, you had Jomo Kenyatta,
That's right.
You had Haile Selassie, but somewhere along the line, what's actually very interesting about the Pan-Africanists and most of the colonial powers, they were the first rulers, right? The prime ministers or presidents,
Right.
was that each of those people that you just mentioned had one thing in common: they had all studied and lived abroad.
That's right. Go figure. That's right.
So I sometimes, I may be a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I sometimes wonder, was it by design that most of the people who are the first leaders of African nations had lived, had worked, some had even married abroad?
That's right.
As opposed to, would it have been more, would we have had a more radical crop of leaders if it was just guys from, just Mta?
From the bush, right. Yeah. Well, they had the vision, and I think it's coming to fruition. Again, the eternal optimist here speaking. We're going to do great things with this free trade agreement. I truly believe in it.
If
So-
it's not scuttled.
Yeah, we'll see.
if
Yeah,
that's level.
remains to be
Yeah.
seen. But I'm optimist.
Mm.
Now, um, the situation here when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to mental health,
Mm.
uh, in terms of resources, there are certain things lacking, certain infrastructures, right?
Yes.
For instance, a national hotline,
Mm-hmm.
okay, for mental health awareness.
Like even a national mental health policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
again,
Mm.
but the hotline will go a long way,
Mm-hmm.
be making it 100% anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The suicide hotline,
Mm-hmm.
100% anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what would be of great deal of help would be to basically legislation
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
strike
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
the
The suicide that you survived the law.
exactly right. So I think that will be that's they're doing a great disservice to people who suffer in silence for fear of coming forward and now being coming out of it on the other side with a criminal record.
You know what actually
It's
happens,
absurd.
which is very sad, is that families that have got people with mental issues, they actually hide that person
W-
away.
There you go.
Yeah,
Unpack that.
yeah.
So why do you think that is? Is it because there's stigma attached to it?
It's an
What do you think
embarrassment.
that is?
It's an embarrassment. First of all, some people feel like maybe it's a curse on the family. Some people feel like maybe it's like it's like karma, especially if you're like from a wealthy family.
Mm.
You know, they completely hide you away. We saw this even with the royal family. There was an episode of The Crown where
Mm.
like quite a few of them were like in an asylum,
Right.
and they've been hidden away. In fact, the record said that they had died.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like people think that mental illness is something to be ashamed. In fact, you'd be very surprised, but even here in Kenya,
Hmm.
a lot of people see shrinks.
But they won't advertise it.
No, they won't advertise, but you'd be surprised.
But
A
see,
lot of people see shrinks.
that's the thing. And let's unpack that.
Mm.
I think for some reason or another, um, it's a melanated community issue, not just in Kenya,
Mm-hmm.
okay, even back in America,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's that stigma
Mm-hmm.
attached to to a diagnosis of well, you have some sort of a
You're
mental
crazy.
right, exactly. So it drives a lot of people underground. They
Yeah, it
don't
does.
really want to talk about it.
Mm.
Once you're underground, you as as we say in Kenya,
Mm.
chini ya
Chini ya
maji,
maji.
right?
Under the water.
Under the waters, loosely translated, actually
Yeah.
directly translated,
Yeah, really.
But then you in turn you put up a facade that everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
even you may be suffering tremendously, like greatly in silence,
Mm-hmm.
but then you put on a face
Mm-hmm.
when you interact with your family and friends, because now, especially for us men,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, well, if you talk about being depressed or being in a state of less than stellar, well, what do they tell you? Grow a pair, snap out of it.
Exactly. You're a man.
Right, you're a
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
So what are you talking
Or even
about?
if you're a woman, like what's it? Put your big girl panties on.
Again, right? Exactly. What does that do? That doesn't inspire
No.
confidence in a person to say, you know what? Okay, I'm being heard.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So because of the stigma attached to it, so you just keep it to yourself and you
Exactly.
suffer in silence.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, somebody attempts suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody's shocked. It was like, wow, we never knew.
Yeah.
We just saw him yesterday. He was happy. He was smiling. There was no indication that he or
That's the
she.
most dangerous thing. A lot of people who commit suicide, everybody will tell you, but wait a minute, this is the most happiest, go luckiest person that we
Yeah.
knew because you didn't know the pain that was the facade was hiding.
Yeah,
Yeah. In
exactly.
fact, it's a well-known fact that most comedians actually,
Mm.
they have an unimaginable sadness
Bring
inside
your
them.
mic up a little bit.
Yeah,
Just pull it up closer. Yeah, yeah. There you go.
they
That's
have
right.
an unimaginable sadness
Yeah.
inside them. And you saw what happened to Robin Williams,
That's right.
Richard Pryor.
Correct.
His battle with cocaine.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
countless.
Mm. Dave
artists, creatives.
Chappelle,
Yeah,
remember,
Dave.
had his episode.
That's right.
Kevin Hart had
Yep,
his episode.
that's right.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
So I think for us to start the conversation and let people know that it's okay to talk. It's actually better to talk about it. Don't suffer in silence. All right, and for us, you and I, what we strive to establish is the accountability partner
Exactly.
situation where
Yes.
we partner two people together. If you
Yes.
feel like start in a small circle and eventually we can expand
Expand.
it.
Yeah.
All right. But if you feel more comfortable on a one-on-one basis, then have your accountability partner, somebody you can talk to,
And trust.
yeah, and trust
Exactly.
round the clock. You
Yeah.
feel like you're less than stellar today. Well, call or WhatsApp or Skype or Zoom
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
your accountability partner,
Just communicate.
communicate
Communicate.
and
Yeah.
talk about these things. And I think that'll make us go a long way and now bring to light that affliction that's basically decimating a lot of us in silence, and we got to play our part, each and every one of us. Yeah. So a shameless plug, folks. So once we establish the path to connect accountability partners, then we'll announce it on this platform,
Yes.
on this podcast,
Yes.
and we'll start connecting people together. And at some point, I guess we'll have open lines where people can phone in,
Yes.
can zoom in as
Yes.
well, and
Yes.
talk about what's near and dear to their hearts in terms of their mental state,
Exactly.
and mental wellness,
Exactly.
and we'll take it from there. So we that's the ultimate goal. All right.
Eventually.
If we can touch one or two souls, we'll be happy. It will be greatly appreciated. So
Yes.
that's what we aim to do. So end of shameless plug. Let's continue. Alrighty. So Chris,
Yeah.
uh, let's talk about the creative sector here in Kenya,
Okay.
and what exactly it has done. Okay, the pandemic. We're talking about the pandemic, and it has highlighted in terms of now the mental issues that were prevalent before the pandemic and now during this pandemic. In your opinion, what do you think the situation is here on the ground when it comes to the creative economy, the creatives, and their mental state? How do you? Because you interact with a lot more
Yes.
creatives here than I do. So, what do you think is the mental state of the creatives are in the country? And have you had a chance to discuss it with anybody else besides myself? Have you had a chance to actually discuss this particular subject with anybody else?
Yes, I have. In fact, I'll be very, very honest. Creatives in Kenya have always had a bit of a rough ride. This stems from the fact that they've always kind of like been taken for granted. And what people don't understand is, like even during the whole COVID pandemic, the lockdown and shutdowns, whatever it was people were primarily kept sane by the DJs, by the comedians, by the musicians, by the actors, sportsmen. Sportsmen. These are basically people in the creative economy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of the nature of the creative economy has a tendency to have situations like if you're actors on set and extras and all that, you have it's very heavily populated. You need a lot of people on set, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So one of two things has happened: you've either adapted or you've died. You realize that maybe I don't need 30 people on set; I need 15. You see, you realize that it's very, very important to keep yourself healthy and keep others healthy. The upside has been that sets that have been cutting costs and cutting corners and what have you, now it's kind of like compulsory to have like a set medic.
Hmm.
You see? primarily because of COVID-19, but
Right.
it's a good thing. So now, whenever you're doing your budget, like if it's a television program or if it's a movie or something, you have to have possibly a budget for COVID-19 testing
Mhm.
and also for set medic. These are things that were by the ways. Okay. Another thing is that it has taught people to shoot differently because whereas people would do this thing of pick up guys from town in the morning, bring them back in the evening. What some people have opted to do is like shoot and for a block of like 1 week.
Mhm.
Because if I test you and you're on my set, I know where you are from this time to this time. If I test you and you're going back to fro, you don't know
Correct.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it has changed people's way of even shooting,
Right.
the shooting style.
Right.